In the late 22nd century, Earth stood on the precipice of destruction. Decades of war, environmental collapse, and political instability had reduced much of the planet to rubble. Once a thriving hub of civilization, humanity's home had become a dying world, abandoned by many of its former allies in the galactic community. The great powers of Earth, nations that once held dominion over vast empires, now bickered over scraps of land and dwindling resources. Hope was scarce, but there were whispers of a new beginning, of a way for humanity to rise from the ashes. The spark that ignited this hope came from an unlikely source, a secret government program called Project Forge. Hidden deep beneath the crumbling surface of Earth, the project was a last-ditch effort to ensure humanity's survival. What began as a military experiment soon evolved into something far greater, a breeding ground for a new generation of warriors who would fight to reclaim humanity's rightful place among the stars. These warriors, forged in fire and tempered in battle, would become the champions of Earth's last stand, a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The project's creators, a coalition of military leaders, scientists, and visionaries, had engineered these soldiers to be more than human. They were stronger, faster, and more resilient than any of their predecessors. But what truly set them apart was their unbreakable spirit. They had been raised in a world that had failed them, and they had nothing left to lose. As the warriors completed their rigorous training, the Earth's Council made the fateful decision to send them into the stars, not only to fight for their home, but to stake humanity's claim in the vast and uncharted expanse of the galaxy. The message was clear: humanity will not be forgotten. We will rise again, In the shadow of Earth's burning cities, the first fleet of Project Forge was prepared for launch. The warriors boarded their ships, a force of elite soldiers that would be humanity's answer to the threats lurking beyond their world. They were armed with cutting-edge technology, but it was their indomitable will that would be their true weapon. Commanded by General Celine Voss, a fierce leader with a reputation for never backing down, the fleet set off into the unknown. Celine was a product of Project Forge herself, and her story was one of relentless determination. Raised in the war-torn remnants of Eastern Europe, she had seen her family destroyed by the chaos that engulfed Earth. Driven by vengeance, she had volunteered for Project Forge and had risen to the rank of general by proving her worth in countless battles. As the fleet traveled deeper into space, the warriors were forced to confront not only the external threats that awaited them, but the demons of their past. The haunting memories of Earth's fall, the loved ones they had lost, and the weight of their mission weighed heavily on their hearts. But for each of them, there was no turning back. Earth was counting on them, and failure was not an option. Soon, the fleet encountered its first challenge. A rogue faction of the Signet Alliance, a once proud interstellar nation, had taken control of a vital resource-rich planet in a remote sector. The Alliance had turned its back on humanity long ago, abandoning Earth to its fate when the planet fell into chaos. But now, as humanity's last hope, the warriors of Project Forge would be forced to face the brutal truth: the galaxy was not as welcoming as they had hoped. As the warriors prepared for their first battle, General Voss gathered them together on the bridge of her flagship, the Resilience. Her voice, steady and calm, echoed throughout the command deck. "Warriors, this is not just a mission. This is our moment," she began, her eyes meeting those of each soldier present. "The galaxy may have abandoned us, but we will show them that humanity is not to be underestimated. We are forged in fire, tempered in battle, and destined to rule the stars. It's time to remind the universe who we are." With those words, the warriors of Project Forge steeled themselves for the coming battle. They were not merely fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of humanity, a future where they would no longer be a forgotten relic of the past, but the rulers of a new interstellar empire. Their enemies, no matter how powerful or numerous, would soon learn the true meaning of humanity's resolve. The Resilience and its fleet descended upon the Signet Alliance's stronghold, the warriors ready to strike with the fury of a world that had been forged in destruction. The future of humanity was in their hands, and they would stop at nothing to secure it. The battle for the Signet Alliance's stronghold was swift and brutal. The warriors of Project Forge, honed through years of ruthless training and fueled by an unbreakable drive, descended upon the planet's surface with terrifying precision. Led by General Celine Voss, the fleet unleashed an onslaught of devastating firepower. The ground shook with the force of their assault, while the skies above burned with the fury of warships locked in aerial combat. The Signet Alliance, though technologically advanced, was no match for the sheer ferocity of humanity's finest warriors. The enemy's forces scrambled to mount a defense, but they were unprepared for the relentless precision with which the forged soldiers struck. Tanks crumbled beneath their onslaught, fortified positions fell in moments, and enemy infantry were decimated by the warriors' superior tactics and coordination. But despite the overwhelming force of the forged soldiers, something more than sheer firepower was at play. The warriors fought not just for victory, but for something deeper, an existential need to prove humanity's worth in the vast cosmos. As each battle raged, it became clear that they were not simply fighting for survival, they were fighting for the very soul of humanity. On the surface, the soldiers moved like shadows, using stealth and speed to infiltrate the enemy's command centers. Corporal Jacques Vasquez, a fierce warrior with a reputation for leading dangerous raids, was at the forefront of this mission. He had once been a street orphan on Earth, scraping by in the ruins of what had been a major metropolis. Now, he led squads of forged soldiers through crumbling cities on alien worlds, his unshakable resolve making him a legend in the ranks. "Keep moving!" Jax shouted over the comms as he sprinted through the enemy stronghold. "We can't afford to give them a second to regroup." His squad followed closely, each soldier executing their mission with flawless efficiency. Jax had seen war in all its forms, but nothing compared to the new generation of warriors like those he now commanded. They were ruthless in their efficiency, but they were also united by a singular purpose, making the galaxy acknowledge humanity's strength. Meanwhile, General Voss commanded the battlefield from orbit, coordinating the attack with ruthless precision. On the bridge of the Resilience, she watched as the battle unfolded. Her eyes, cold and calculating, never left the view screen, even as explosions rocked the surface of the planet. The enemy fleet was trying to regroup, launching a counteroffensive, but it was already too late. The Forge fleet had broken their defenses and secured orbital superiority. "Prepare to deploy the ground forces," Voss ordered, her voice unwavering. "The planet belongs to us now." Her fleet's drop pods rained down from the heavens, carrying wave after wave of Forge warriors to the planet's surface. As the warriors hit the ground, the remaining Signet forces, disoriented and outmatched, began to crumble. But their commander, a battle-hardened tactician known only as Rylak, refused to admit defeat. The Signet Alliance had been a mighty force once, and Rylak's pride refused to allow his people to fall without a fight. In a final desperate bid, Rylak activated the planet's last line of defense, a colossal weapon designed to obliterate any force attempting to take control of the planet. It was a devastating super laser, capable of destroying entire cities in a single shot. But Rylak underestimated the warriors he faced. General Voss, who had seen death and destruction more times than she cared to remember, quickly deduced the enemy's plan. She gave the order to move in on the weapon's location, knowing that time was running out. Jax Vasquez and his squad were the first to reach the superweapon. They had to breach the heavily fortified complex that housed the weapon and shut it down before it could fire. With explosives and precision strikes, they cleared the way, but it wasn't without cost. The Signet forces fought back fiercely, determined to take down as many of the Forged soldiers as they could. Amidst the chaos, Jax faced down Rylak in the control room of the superweapon. Rylak, bloodied but defiant, raised his weapon, his eyes filled with hatred. "You cannot win," Rylak spat. "Humanity's time is over. You are nothing more than relics of a dying world." But Jax, staring into Rylak's eyes, felt the weight of humanity's future upon him. "We are not relics. We are the future." With a swift strike, Jax disabled Rylak's weapon and secured the control room. As the superlaser powered down, the battle was won. The Signet Alliance's forces surrendered, their resolve shattered by the Forge warriors' unrelenting assault. On the bridge of the Resilience, General Voss looked out at the planet below, a sense of cold satisfaction filling her. The first step toward humanity's dominance in the galaxy had been taken. Earth's warriors had proven their might. Report, she said calmly. We've secured the planet, General, a subordinate replied. The Signet Alliance is in full retreat. Their leaders have requested terms of surrender. Voss nodded. Let them surrender. We're not here to make deals. We're here to rule. The warriors of Project Forge had begun their rise to power. With the Signet Alliance subdued, they now set their sights on the next step in humanity's quest to reclaim its place among the stars. The battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. The victory on the Signet Alliance's stronghold was but the first taste of what Earth's warriors were capable of, and the galaxy soon took notice. The once crippled species, abandoned by its allies and left to rot on a dying planet, had suddenly risen like a phoenix from the ashes. The Forge warriors, with their unyielding discipline and unprecedented capabilities, had dealt the first blow in what would become humanity's crusade to reclaim the stars. General Voss, however, knew better than to bask in glory. As her fleet prepared to depart from the Signet system, her mind was already focused on the next objective. Every victory brought them closer to the ultimate goal, to re-establish Earth as the dominant power in the galaxy. But the more humanity succeeded, the more enemies they attracted. We've shown them what we can do, Voss said to her senior command officers, standing in the war room aboard the Resilience. But the universe isn't going to roll over and accept our place at the top. We have to keep our eyes open. There will be others watching. Waiting. Indeed, across the galaxy, news of humanity's triumph had spread like wildfire. While some systems welcomed them, recognizing the fire of ambition that burned in the hearts of the Forge soldiers, others were alarmed by this resurgence. The galaxy was no longer a place where humanity was seen as a relic. It was now a place where Earth was a rising power, and every empire had something to lose. In the aftermath of the battle, Jax Vasquez, one of the most battle-hardened warriors of Project Forge, took a rare moment to reflect. He had never known a life outside of war. Raised as an orphan on the streets of Earth's crumbling cities, he had always fought for survival. Now, for the first time, he wondered if his victories would come with a price too steep to pay. He stood on the observation deck of the Resilience, gazing out into the cold emptiness of space. The stars seemed so distant, almost unreachable. He had never had the luxury of dreaming beyond the next battle, the next mission. But something had changed within him. The warriors of Project Forge had been forged to fight for Earth, but with every victory, the cost became more evident. They were not just warriors anymore, they were symbols, ambassadors of humanity's future, and that future demanded sacrifice. Voss, ever perceptive, joined him on the deck, her footsteps silent on the metal floors. She, too, knew the weight of their mission. She had witnessed the toll that leadership took on even the strongest of warriors. The burden of ensuring humanity's dominance was hers alone to carry, and she bore it with stoic resolve. "You're thinking too much, Jax," Voss said, her voice low but firm. Jax gave her a sideways glance, his brow furrowed. "What are we doing, General? We've won, sure. But at what cost?" Voss was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the infinite void. "You're asking the wrong question, Jax. The real question is, what happens when we stop fighting?" His response was a quiet scoff, but he didn't push the issue. He knew better than anyone that General Voss was not one to entertain weakness. "I'm not sure I'm ready to follow you wherever this is going," he said, his voice tinged with doubt. Voss turned to him, her piercing gaze locking with his. "Then it's a good thing you don't have to be ready. You just need to keep fighting." Their conversation ended there, but the tension lingered in Jax's mind. The warriors of Project Forge had been trained for one purpose, to be Earth's champions. They had no choice but to continue, to fight on and conquer, until there was nothing left to take. Yet, Jax couldn't help but wonder what would become of them when all was said and done. If they succeeded in restoring Earth to its former glory, what would be left for them? What was the point of victory if it came at the cost of their souls? The Forge fleet soon set course for its next objective, the Volantis Cluster, a series of star systems home to the decadent and dangerous Drakari Empire, a militaristic and expansionist race known for their ruthlessness. They had long claimed dominion over vast swathes of space and had never encountered a force like the Forge Warriors. The intelligence gathered from the Signet system indicated that the Drakari had been monitoring the Forge forces closely. Their empire had endured centuries of bloody conquest, and they had no intention of allowing a rising human power to stand in their way. As the Resilience dropped out of warp and entered the Volantis system, General Voss prepared her fleet for the upcoming conflict. She was no longer concerned with the galaxy's perception of Earth. This mission was not about proving anything to the stars, it was about survival. "Prepare for battle," Voss ordered, her voice as cold as the stars outside the window. "We are the tip of humanity's spear. There is no going back from this." Jax, standing at attention alongside his squad, felt the weight of her words. The Forge Warriors had been forged in fire, tempered in battle, and now, they were about to face their greatest challenge yet. But as the countdown to war began, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that their victories, hard-earned and glorious as they were, might come at a cost greater than anyone could comprehend. In the heart of space, surrounded by enemies and endless stars, humanity's destiny was about to be tested once again. The question remained, would the price of glory be too high? Or would Earth's warriors prove that they were willing to pay any price to ensure their place in the stars? The Volantis system loomed ahead like a dark storm cloud on the horizon. For centuries, the Drakari Empire had expanded its dominion through conquest, subjugating countless worlds in its wake. Their brutal methods and military prowess were the stuff of legend, and their fleets, black and imposing, patrolled their borders with deadly intent. In their eyes, the Forge Warriors were nothing more than a fleeting nuisance, a minor threat that would be crushed under the weight of the Drakari war machine. General Celine Voss, however, knew better. She had seen the destruction that the Forge Warriors could bring, and she trusted in their unyielding spirit. The Drakari had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back from the brink of annihilation. Now, they would understand just how dangerous a cornered species could be. As the Resilience dropped out of warp, Voss's fleet joined the other warships in formation. A vast array of battlecruisers, strike fighters, and troop transports filled the void, a testament to the might of Earth's new warriors. The fleet was a well-oiled machine, each ship and soldier prepared for the impending conflict. But this battle would be unlike any they had fought before. "General, the Drakari fleet is on approach," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Marcus Grant. His eyes flicked over the tactical display, his voice tense. "They're sending their flagship, Tyranny, ahead of the main force. It's a command ship, their strongest vessel." Voss's eyes narrowed as she studied the Drakari fleet's movements. Tyranny, the very name invoked a chilling sense of dread. It was said that the ship had never been defeated in battle, and its captain, High Commander Talric, was a tactical genius. To face such an opponent would be a test of their resolve. "The Drakari believe they're invincible," Voss muttered, her fingers tracing the holographic map. "But they're about to learn the hard way that we don't fear them." Her voice, calm yet filled with the weight of experience, echoed throughout the ship. "Prepare all forces for immediate engagement. We strike at their flagship first, Tyranny is their heart. If we take it out, the rest of the fleet will fall." Across the fleet, the warriors of Project Forge readied themselves for battle. Jax Vasquez, leading one of the most elite strike teams, felt the rush of anticipation surge through his veins. This was what they were born for. This was their destiny. As the first wave of Drakari ships entered weapons range, the battle began in a blaze of fire and fury. The Resilience and its fleet were met with a barrage of plasma torpedoes, the space around them lighting up with explosions. But the warriors of Forge were well trained. Their ships darted through the barrage with precision, evading the worst of the damage and returning fire with deadly accuracy. Jax's team was dispatched to board Tyranny, a mission that would take them into the heart of the Drakari stronghold. They dropped from the bay of the Resilience in sleek, heavily armored pods, the noise of their descent drowned by the rush of atmosphere as they made their way to the enemy flagship. Inside the pod, Jax sat quietly, his fingers drumming lightly on his pulse rifle. His mind was focused, but the nagging doubt from earlier still lingered in the back of his mind. He had come so far, and the stakes were higher than ever. Earth's warriors had become symbols of hope for a broken world, but at what cost? Was this endless battle truly what they were meant to do, or was there something more at play, a purpose beyond warfare? Focus, Vasquez, a voice snapped, cutting through his thoughts. It was Sergeant Kayla Torin, his second-in-command. She had been with him through countless battles, her steel-gray eyes as sharp as the blade of her combat knife. The Drakari don't give a damn about our doubts. Let's show them what we're made of. Jax nodded, standing up as the pod shuddered and hit the hull of Tyranny. The doors hissed open, and the warriors poured out into the cold metal corridors of the Drakari flagship. The Drakari soldiers, tall and heavily armored, were already waiting for them, their weapons drawn. But Jax's team didn't hesitate. They were Forge warriors, trained to eliminate threats with surgical precision. The corridors erupted into a cacophony of gunfire and screams as Jax's squad fought their way through the ship. They moved like a well-coordinated unit, covering each other's backs and taking down Drakari soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Every corner, every hallway was a deadly gauntlet, but they pressed forward. The heart of the ship, the bridge, was within their grasp. As they reached the final chamber before the bridge, they encountered High Commander Talric himself. Tall and imposing, with pale, scarred skin and eyes that burned with a ferocious intensity, he was everything Jax had expected and more. The Drakari leader stood at the far end of the room, his warblade gleaming with deadly light. "You think you can defeat me?" Talric's voice was like gravel, each word dripping with disdain. "You are nothing but ants beneath my boot. This is the end of your pathetic crusade." Jax's eyes narrowed. "We don't stop fighting, Talric. Not now. Not ever." With a battle cry, Jax charged, his rifle blazing. The two warriors clashed in a brutal dance of steel and fury. Talric's strength was immense, but Jax's speed and determination proved to be a greater weapon. The battle raged on, each strike reverberating through the flagship's metal walls. Finally, with one decisive blow, Jax landed a strike that disarmed Talric, sending his warblade clattering across the floor. Panting, covered in blood and sweat, Jax stood over his fallen foe. "The Drakari Empire falls today," Jax said, his voice low but resolute. "And Earth's warriors will rise." With Talric defeated, the bridge was secured, and the tyranny was crippled. The Drakari fleet, now leaderless and in disarray, was quickly overwhelmed by the combined might of Forge's warriors and the Resilience's guns. As the Drakari flagship exploded in the distance, General Voss looked out over the battlefield, her gaze fixed on the wreckage. The battle had been won, but the cost of victory was already beginning to weigh heavily on her mind. For every enemy they crushed, another would rise to take its place. Yet, for Earth's warriors, there was no turning back. Their war for the stars had just begun. The Drakari Empire had been dealt a devastating blow, and tyranny's fall sent shockwaves across the galaxy. As the Forge warriors stood victorious on the ashes of the Drakari flagship, they felt the weight of their triumph. General Voss's calculated strategy had succeeded, but even in victory, the true cost of their relentless advance was becoming painfully apparent. The warriors had earned their place in the stars, but at what price? In the aftermath of the battle, the Resilience and the fleet lingered in the Volantis system, their presence a symbol of humanity's unyielding determination. But the Drakari were not the only threat on the horizon. The larger galactic stage was beginning to stir, and more powers were taking notice of Earth's rise to prominence. Jax Vasquez, who had once been a survivor of Earth's war-torn streets, now found himself burdened by the heavy responsibility of leadership. He had witnessed humanity's strength in battle, and it was undeniable. But with each victory, he began to question, what would the cost of their meteoric rise be? Was this the destiny humanity had fought for, or was it the inevitable path of self-destruction? His thoughts were interrupted when he received a summons from General Voss. She had called a strategic meeting in the war room aboard the Resilience, and Jax knew it was time to discuss their next move. As he entered the war room, the air felt thick with anticipation. Voss stood at the head of the table, her steely gaze focused on the tactical display in front of her. Several senior officers were present, including Lieutenant Marcus Grant and Sergeant Kayla Torin, Jax's longtime ally. "Gather round," Voss commanded, her voice as cold as ever. "We've received intelligence that the Arcturian Federation has begun massing fleets in our sector. They were already uneasy with our victory over the Dracari, but now, they're preparing for full-scale engagement. The Arcturians, a highly militarized species with a reputation for ruthlessness, had long been a rival of the Dracari. They viewed humanity's rise as an existential threat, a challenge to the balance of power they had long enjoyed. With the Dracari weakened, the Arcturians had begun to mobilize, eager to strike before Earth could solidify its dominance. We can't afford to let them gain the upper hand," Voss continued. "They're going to push, and they won't stop until we're destroyed. Our forces are stretched thin after the Dracari campaign, but we need to move quickly. We'll strike first." Jax listened intently, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The warriors of Project Forge were formidable, but their numbers were still finite. Every battle they fought, every victory they claimed, came at a cost, whether in manpower, resources, or the toll on their morale. As Earth's champions, they were expected to win. But at what point did victory become a Pyrrhic one? "I've been running the numbers," Marcus Grant said, interrupting Jax's thoughts. "The Arcturians have a powerful fleet, and they're already in the process of deploying their elite forces. We can't afford a prolonged war. We need to hit them hard and fast, no room for error." "We've been hitting them hard from the beginning," Jax replied, his voice tinged with frustration. "And yet, every time we win, we just make more enemies." Voss turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Every time we win, Jax, we show the galaxy that humanity is not to be ignored. The Arcturians may not understand our resolve yet, but they will. And if they want a fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The conversation shifted to tactical strategies, and the Forge commanders discussed the upcoming campaign with intensity. Their plan was simple but brutal: launch a series of surprise strikes on key Arcturian military bases, disrupt their fleet's coordination, and cripple their supply lines before they had a chance to respond. But even as they prepared for war, Jax couldn't shake the nagging thought that there was more at play here, a larger scheme that they had yet to see. Later that evening, Jax found himself alone in the observation room of the Resilience, staring out at the swirling expanse of stars. The galaxy stretched out before him, vast and indifferent. The Dracari were broken, but the Arcturians were only the beginning. If humanity continued down this path, Jax knew they would face a future of endless conflict. The question wasn't if they could win, it was whether humanity would survive the cost of its ambition. "You're thinking too much again," Kayla Torin's voice broke the silence. She had appeared beside him, her eyes scanning the stars with the same calculating gaze she always wore. "Maybe," Jax muttered. "But what happens when we win, Kayla? What's left for us after all this fighting? After Earth's had its glory, what do we become?" Kayla remained quiet for a long moment, her eyes locked on the void of space. "You know as well as I do that there's no going back. The galaxy's not going to wait for us to figure it out. If we don't take control, someone else will. And when they come for Earth, there won't be anyone left to fight back." Jax sighed, the weight of her words sinking in. There was no retreat. No turning back from this path. They were Forge warriors. This was their war, their destiny. As the fleet prepared for the next campaign, Jax stood at the edge of the observation room, looking out into the stars. They had only begun to scrape the surface of what humanity could accomplish. The Arcturian Federation was next, and their power would soon be broken. But in the back of his mind, a question lingered like a dark shadow: what would victory look like when humanity finally stood at the top? And would they still recognize themselves when they got there? The tide of war was turning. And with every victory, the warriors of Project Forge would have to decide how far they were willing to go to carve their place among the stars. The Arcturian Federation had long been a cornerstone of galactic power, its empire built on the foundations of military might and strategic cunning. Their fleets were formidable, their warriors seasoned in battle, and their resolve unshakable. Yet, humanity's rapid ascension had unsettled the established order of the galaxy. As Project Forge's ships now entered the Arcturian system, Earth's warriors were about to face their most daunting challenge yet. General Voss, whose leadership had thus far proven unyielding, stood before a holographic map of the Arcturian capital, a planet known as Zenros, their most heavily fortified stronghold. Intelligence had confirmed that the Arcturian Emperor, Voronak III, was hiding in the heart of Zenros, a place said to be impervious to all but the most devastating of attacks. But Voss had no illusions about the Federation's might. She knew their greatest weapon wasn't their fleet or their planetary defenses, it was their unwavering belief in their own superiority. If we strike Zenros, we take the heart of the Arcturian Empire, Voss said, her tone cold and measured. But we must move quickly. They'll know we're coming, and they'll do everything they can to stop us. Jax Vasquez, standing among the gathered commanders, felt the weight of her words. Their past victories had come at great cost, but this mission was different. It wasn't just about defeating an enemy, it was about breaking the back of an empire. The Arcturians would stop at nothing to crush them, and yet, humanity had no choice but to keep fighting. The stakes had never been higher. How do we get past their defenses? Jax asked, his voice steady but filled with resolve. Voss's eyes flicked over to Lieutenant Marcus Grant, who had been poring over the data. We've developed a new weapon, he said, something that should give us the edge. A modified EMP pulse bomb, strong enough to disable their planetary shields and take out a significant portion of their military infrastructure. It won't be enough to win the war in one blow, but it'll give us the opportunity to strike the capital itself. Jax nodded, but a gnawing feeling lingered in the back of his mind. They had fought for Earth's survival, and now they fought for control. But what came after they toppled the Arcturian Empire? What did they truly hope to build in the ruins of the galaxy? The plan was set. They would deploy the EMP strike from a fleet of stealth bombers, slip through the Arcturian outer defenses, and make their move on Zenros. The fleet would follow close behind, prepared to engage the Arcturian military head-on. But as the hours ticked down to their assault, Jax couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing into something larger, something that they might not yet fully understand. Zenros, the capital of the Arcturian Federation, stood as a testament to the Empire's unyielding dominance. Towering spires of metal and glass stretched toward the sky, while countless military fortresses ringed the planet's surface. But amidst all the power and opulence, the Arcturians had underestimated their human adversaries. The fleet of forged ships dropped out of warp, and the first wave of stealth bombers made their way toward Zenros. As the EMP bombs were deployed, the planet's shields flickered and fell, sending shockwaves through the Arcturian military. "We're in," Voss said, her voice crisp with determination. "Deploy the ground forces. Time to take this planet." Jax's squad was among the first to deploy, their drop pods descending toward the heart of Zenros. The city below was a sprawling mass of high-rise buildings, military complexes, and fortified bunkers. The Arcturians were scrambling to regroup, but humanity had already seized the initiative. Their warriors, forged in the heat of countless battles, were a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. As Jax's team landed, the battle raged around them. Arcturian soldiers, clad in their advanced armor, emerged from the shadows, their weapons blazing. But the Forge warriors fought with a brutal efficiency that overwhelmed the enemy at every turn. Every corner, every building was a new challenge, but they met it head-on, pushing deeper into the heart of the city. "We need to reach the central command center," Jax barked over the comms. "That's where the Emperor's hiding. We take him out, and the rest of their military crumbles." They advanced quickly, tearing through the streets with relentless precision. But the closer they got to the command center, the heavier the resistance became. The Arcturians, desperate to protect their emperor, fought tooth and nail to stop them. Jax's team encountered wave after wave of elite soldiers, each one determined to hold the line. It was clear that the Arcturians were willing to sacrifice everything to protect their emperor. As they neared the heart of Zenros, Jax and his team were met by a battalion of Arcturian shock troops, heavily armored and armed with devastating plasma rifles. The ensuing firefight was brutal, with explosions shaking the ground beneath their feet. Despite the odds, the Forge warriors pressed on, cutting through the enemy ranks with surgical precision. "General Voss, we're in position," Jack said, his voice tense. "We're ready to take the Emperor." A final push brought them to the heart of Zenros, where the Arcturian Emperor, Voronak III, stood at the center of his fortified palace, flanked by his personal guards. His golden armor gleamed in the dim light, and his eyes burned with fury as he surveyed the Forge warriors who had come to claim his empire. "You are fools to think you can defeat us," Voronak spat, his voice a deep growl. "The Arcturians are the true rulers of this galaxy. You are nothing but insects. My empire will never fall." Jax's pulse rifle hummed with energy as he leveled it at the Emperor. "The galaxy's changing, Voronak. And it's time for you to learn that Earth's warriors are here to stay." With a single shot, Jax ended the reign of the Arcturian Emperor. The palace walls trembled as the heart of the Empire fell. The Arcturian military, now leaderless and broken, scattered in disarray, unable to hold back the human tide. As the dust settled and the Forge warriors claimed Zenros as their own, Jax stood over the fallen Emperor's body. The victory was undeniable, but the cost was beginning to weigh heavily on him. With every enemy they defeated, Earth's warriors were becoming more than just soldiers. They were the new rulers of the stars. The question that haunted him, however, remained unanswered: what would Earth's future look like when there was no one left to challenge them? Would they remain humanity's champions, or would they become the very thing they had once fought against? The galaxy had been forever changed. With the fall of the Arcturian Empire and the destruction of their leadership, Earth's warriors stood atop a mountain of victory. The once proud Arcturians, broken and leaderless, were now little more than a scattered and weakened force. Zenros was theirs, and the galaxy had witnessed humanity's meteoric rise to dominance. But for Jax Vasquez and his comrades, the taste of victory was bittersweet. The galaxy they had fought to conquer was vast and filled with challenges, and with each victory, the weight of their responsibilities grew heavier. The Forge warriors, now the undisputed champions of the stars, had claimed their place as the new rulers of the galaxy. But what did that mean for Earth? What was the cost of their conquest? In the aftermath of the battle for Zenros, General Voss had ordered a cessation of active combat. The Forge fleet, once a swift instrument of war, had become a symbol of control. And though the Arcturians had fallen, the war-torn galaxy was rife with political tensions, power struggles, and new threats. The factions that once controlled the galaxy were now in disarray, scrambling to find their place in this new world order. Jax stood at the edge of the Resilience, gazing out into the vast expanse of stars. The war was over, but the real struggle was just beginning. Earth had become the galaxy's supreme power, but with that power came difficult choices. The Forge warriors had been forged in the fires of battle, tempered through the unrelenting grind of war, but could they now steer their people away from the very fate they had once fought to escape? "Do you ever stop thinking, Vasquez?" Kayla Torin's voice cut through the silence, a rare hint of softness in her tone. She leaned against the observation window, arms crossed, staring out at the same stars that haunted Jax's thoughts. "Not when it matters," Jax replied, his voice tinged with weariness. "We've conquered the Arcturians. We've secured Earth's future. But what now? The galaxy is still broken. There's no peace. No real unity." Kayla's gaze never wavered from the stars. "There won't be peace, not like you think. The galaxy doesn't work that way. It's a place of constant motion, of power struggles and shifting alliances. We're in control now, but we'll have to fight to keep it. If Earth falls, there won't be anyone left to protect us." Jax's mind raced, but before he could respond, General Voss's voice came through the comm system, sharp and commanding. "Vasquez, Torin. Report to the war room. We have a situation." The urgency in her voice left little room for debate, and Jax turned toward the door, his thoughts still clouded. With the Arcturians defeated, they had assumed the hard part was over. But now, the new empire they had built would be tested in ways they hadn't foreseen. In the war room, Voss stood before the tactical display, her brow furrowed as she examined the latest intelligence. Lieutenant Grant and several other officers were gathered around, their faces serious. "General, what's going on?" Jax asked, stepping forward. "We've received reports from several systems," Voss said, her voice tight with concern. "It seems the galaxy's balance of power is shifting in ways we didn't anticipate. Other factions, smaller empires, rogue states, are starting to coalesce. They see Earth's dominance as a threat. There's talk of an alliance forming, a coalition that might just be strong enough to challenge us." Jax's stomach tightened. "Another war?" "Possibly," Voss replied, her eyes hardening. "But this isn't like the Drakari or the Arctarians. These factions are scattered, disorganized, so far. But we need to act fast. If they manage to unite, they'll be a force we can't ignore." Kayla stepped forward, her voice low but filled with resolve. "The galaxy doesn't just hand over control, General. We fought to get here, and we'll fight to keep it. We can't let the flame of rebellion burn out of control." Jax knew what Kayla meant. If they didn't act now, the galaxy would descend into chaos once again. The Forge warriors were powerful, but they weren't invincible. The galaxy was a vast and treacherous place, and now that Earth had taken its place as the new power, there would always be those willing to challenge them. "What's the plan?" Jax asked, his voice steady. "We move now," Voss said. "We strike before they can unite. We crush the spark of rebellion before it turns into an inferno. Our forces are spread out, but we can concentrate our strength in key systems. We'll show the galaxy that Earth's rule is final." The officers nodded in agreement, their faces grim but determined. It was clear that the road ahead would be fraught with danger. The galaxy would never be truly unified, not under their rule, not under any rule. Power was always in flux, always shifting. But for the Forge warriors, there was no turning back. They had fought for this, fought for a place in the stars, and they would not surrender it. As Jax boarded his ship and prepared for the next campaign, his thoughts drifted back to the question that had lingered in his mind since the first battle: what would victory look like? Earth had won. They had conquered the stars, defeated the empires that sought to subjugate them, and brought humanity to the forefront of galactic power. But now, as they prepared for yet another war, Jax realized that the true cost of their rise was not in lives lost or planets conquered. It was in the soul of humanity itself. They had forged their empire in fire. Now, they had to decide whether they would rule as tyrants or as guardians of the future. The galaxy was their stage, and the legacy of the Forge would be written by the choices they made in the days to come. The question remained: would humanity become the rulers they had fought to be? Or would they lose themselves in the very ambition they had sought to rise above? As the Resilience soared toward its next battle, Jax knew one thing for certain: Earth's warriors had been forged in fire, tempered in battle. But only time would tell if they were destined to rule the stars, or if the stars would eventually consume them.